Welcome to the Strength Lab podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Ramsey, and my guest today is Mike Trotter, the PT boss.
What
He
up, big dog?
is he is a first form athlete and master trainer. So we got a lot of good questions for him today on the fitness industry, nutrition, supplementation, training, and all that kind of thing. So we will go ahead and get started. How did you get started in the fitness industry there, Mike?
Man, well, back when the fitness industry started, way back in the day was when I became a part of it. No, but I actually went to college and played some basketball, right? And just like all athletes who play any sport at any level, and I played ball at a pretty low level. We were at NAIA D2, right?
Okay.
But in my brain, I was going pro, dog. No matter if I was an NAIA D2 athlete who probably averaged 12 points a game, I was going pro. Well, that mindset actually took me through college and, got me to graduation day where you are sitting at college graduation and you realize, oh man, I got to really figure out what I'm going to do because the whole pro thing didn't work out,
Yeah.
right? So luckily, when I was in college, I did acquire my exercise science degree. So I went to a couple tryouts for some overseas teams, and that didn't work out. So I decided to use my degree. And, I've always had a passion for fitness. I've always had a passion for helping people. So personal training just was the natural next move for me.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Um, so that's how I got into it.
Can you go into like I know you were at Gold's Gym for a while,
Yeah.
and then kind of went more online, and then you kind of started working with First Form. Can you kind of talk about how Gold's Gym was, and then your transition to First Form?
Yeah, absolutely. So Golds was the first job that I had, right? And I had a reality check right out the gate because in my mind, you know, I have a degree in the field, so you should just hire me. And a lot of trainers make this mistake. They're like, you have a degree or a certification, and you're like, dude, not only should you hire me, but this should be the reason clients want to hire me. Well,
Yeah.
um, I roll into Gold's Gym and I talk to the girl at the front desk, and she's like, "We'll call you back tomorrow," And she did not call me back tomorrow. So I show up again the next day, and she's like, "Well, didn't I see you yesterday?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you said you were going to have the manager call me, and you didn't have the manager call me." So, bro, this went on for like 5 days straight, like me showing up and her saying the manager was going to call me, and he never called within that
Yeah.
time frame. What I didn't tell you is that I also had already gotten hired at Bally's Total Fitness, which was in Chicago, but I didn't want to work in Chicago because I was from Chicago, so I wanted to get away from home, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So my mother gave me a timeline. She's like, "All right, you got this amount of time in order to find a job somewhere else, or you're going to come back home and work at the job that you already have, set up."
Yeah.
So this is why there was a sense of urgency to get hired at Golds, right? Because I wanted to work in the industry, but just not at home. So as I'm packing my stuff, getting ready to go home, because the time was up, guess who calls? The
Gold's
manager from
Gym.
Gold's Gym, right? So they signed me up for this class because they didn't just hire you; you had to take this class in order to get hired on. And they put you through all this physical stuff and this, these mental tests and these you know, workout. It was a crazy 2 weeks, dog. And by the end of it, you're then it's like tryouts. It's like everybody sit on one side of the room, and it's like, all right, Tyler, you're on the team. John, you're on the team. Susan, you didn't make the team. So like last pick of the 2007 draft was your boy Mike Trotter, right? So I got hired on there, and um, I realized right away that in order for me to stand out and get clients, it wasn't going to be because I was the smartest trainer there or the trainer who had the most certifications or the most degrees, because, dude, they had a solid team already, right?
Yeah.
And you walk in, and I know you know about the training industry, especially in a corporate setting, it's not kumbaya. It's not like, hey, welcome in, buddy. We want to help you, right? No, it's this new guy is potentially taking food off my table because there's only a certain amount of clients to go around, right?
Yeah.
So nobody's like welcoming you in with open arms. So my goal was to figure out how to stand out, right? And what I realized was that there was the clientele that was purchasing training was female between the ages of 28 and 50. So I decided, all right, I'm never going to get this demographic to fall in love with the push-up or a squat or a deadlift or whatever the case may be. But if I can do a good job at figuring out what they want, why they want it, and help them understand how listening to me bridges the gap from getting them to where they are, to where they want to be, now that'll at least keep them coming back, right?
For
And if
sure.
they keep
Yeah.
coming back, what's going to happen? They're going to eventually get results. And once you get results, now you're hooked on, coming back. So
Yeah.
that's what I did that. And I was very successful in the first month. They moved me up to management. And then I was responsible for recruiting, hiring, and teaching trainers this process that I just gave you in a nutshell and growing the program. So took the program from where it was to generating some big numbers. And we ended up being the #1 training department in Central Illinois. And the cool thing is this is when Instagram first started, right? So I was filming myself during this entire process, teaching coaches and, helping coaches understand how to get better. And at that time, I was getting like 9 likes on a post, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So people are laughing at me like, why are you even doing that, right? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to document the process. And, my social media started growing because of it. And that's kind of when I came in contact with First Phorm. So through doing what I was doing every day on social media and in real life, it kind of bridged the gap between me doing what I was doing and then coming in contact with First Phorm.
Yeah. And now you got millions of views on things, which is awesome to
It's
see.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy, man. I don't understand why people, keep coming back, but they do. So we
Yeah.
gonna keep the party going.
You gotta keep it going. Keep it going. So how do you approach someone new to fitness, like a very beginner?
Yeah, I love that question because that's my target, right? That's my target audience. That's my demographic.
Yeah.
Um, I don't typically do well with people who've been doing it for a while because they're usually less open to learning,
They have their
right?
ways already that they think is the best
Exactly.
way.
Even if it's not working,
Yeah.
right?
They still think it's the
So
way.
I gotta convince you that the way that you're doing it isn't working. So now I gotta convince you to listen to me. But for new people, man, I like to simply have a conversation before we start anything, right? Because most coaches can write a great workout program. My goal is to have a conversation and talk to you about, all right, Tyler, break it down. What is it that you want to accomplish? Right. And then once you tell me what that thing is, I want to know why you want to do it. Right. I want to know what's it gonna mean to you to drop the 50 pounds, right? Why is the number 50 pounds? Right?
Yeah.
Why does that matter to you? And is it just about the number, or what do you feel like you're gonna be able to do 50 pounds lighter that you can't currently do now?
That's a good
Right?
point.
Because
Yeah.
now we get to the real conversation of like why I'm really here. And you start finding out like, well, I'm embarrassed because I can't keep up with my kids. Or, I got to cut playtime short because I'm running out of breath as I'm chasing little Johnny around. Right. So, or I'm a businessman and I present in front of large groups. And I feel like when I'm in front of the room, everybody's staring at me because I'm overweight.
Yeah.
So now you start learning like, okay, it's not necessarily just about the 50 pounds, but it's also about how I feel in the skin that I'm in, and I don't like it,
Yeah.
right? So now when I know that you want to quit in 4 weeks, because everybody's hyped week 1,
Yep.
but most people, when it gets to week 4, what happens? They're ready to quit because it's not as fun anymore. Now instead of just being the guy that's like, come on, Tyler, you can do it, right? I'm like, well, Tyler, in the beginning, you told me that when you stand in front of the room and present to people, you're embarrassed because you're overweight and you're not confident in your presentation because you feel like everybody's looking at you because of it.
Yeah.
Has that changed? Right? Is that not important to you anymore?
Yeah.
Right? And now we can level based off of that, right? Because
Yeah.
if I go back and just say, well, you said you wanted to lose 50 pounds, that's not meaningful enough for somebody to want to keep going because they've been 50 pounds overweight for this long. They're like, oh, well, maybe it ain't that
Yeah.
bad.
It's not that
But
hard.
if I can get down to the real reason as to why, now we can have a conversation about, okay, does that thing still matter to you? And if it does, let's figure out a way to keep going.
Yeah. They have to pick
So
that.
that's my approach.
Yeah. They have to pick that hard. I mean, it's hard for them right now to stand up in front of all those people and do that while they're getting looked at, or it's hard to do the workout and get through all the nutrition and all that shit too. So it's hard either way. Pick your hard. Which one do you want?
Exactly. Yeah. You do this hard now, and now you're not going to have to experience the hard that you're experiencing when you walk into that room. Because, hey, if it's your job to walk into the room and present in front of people, it's probably safe to say you're going to have to do that here soon.
Yeah.
So, do you, when the next time you do it, do you want to be better than you are today or worse off?
Yeah.
And most people, if that's why they really do it, they choose the latter and they keep going.
What are the most common mistakes you think people make like starting their journey? Do you think like they think it's
I
gonna
think there are a
be
number of
super
I think there are a
quick?
number of most common mistakes. Say that again.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What would you say, Tyler?
Uh,
I said I think there are a number of most common mistakes, but if I had to pick one,
are you still there?
I'm you there?
Yeah, are you there? Come on.
Yep, I'm here, bro.
Okay, can you hear me?
Do we have a bad connection? I can hear
Yeah.
you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Think we may have a bad connection, huh?
Yeah, I think well, it's starting to work now, a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I'm good now. No, we're good.
Okay. So the question was common mistakes, right?
Yes.
So while I believe that there are a number of common mistakes, I think one of the main ones is people try to do too much too soon. And because they try to do too much too soon, they end up failing. And now they lose confidence and they quit because of it. Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you've been out of shape for 20 years and now you set this goal, you're like, all right, I'm going to fix my diet today. I'm going to work out 5 times a week. I'm going to go for a walk every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And the reality of it is that if you haven't been doing anything and now you try to do all of that, chances are you're not going to succeed at it. And you're going to start to think like, dang, since I can't do all of it, I'm not going to do any of it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go back to what's comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So what I like to do is I like to figure out where the person is in their journey and then start adding one or two things at a time,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's your water, once you get that down packed, now we add steps. Now you get that down packed. Now we assign a couple days at the gym. Now get that down packed. So now we habit stack and keep the momentum going instead of throwing 20 things at you that you probably won't accomplish, because it's too much too soon.
Yeah. It's like the progressive overload of, not just like the weights. It's a progressive load of adding the small things to get that bigger base, that bigger
Yep.
goal. So what are some
Yep.
overlooked
It's
aspects that people should prioritize in their health and wellness?
that the basics work, right?
Yeah.
Like you and I are on the internet quite a bit. So we understand that there isn't much new stuff out there that's groundbreaking that's going to be beneficial for you, right? Like most of
Yeah.
the stuff that works has been around since the beginning of time, right? So there's value in just going for a walk,
Yeah.
right? There's value in drinking your water. There's value in hitting your protein target. And if you can do that for 30 days, in 60 days, in 90 days, you're going to look back better than you were, if even if that's all you changed,
Yeah.
right? So I think people don't give enough credit to the fact that the basics work, always
Yeah.
have, always will.
People are always looking for that little magic pill, for that
Yeah,
next thing. It's like just lift your weights, do your walking, and clean up your food and drink your water. You just got to do
dude.
that. Consistency and patience
Yeah,
over and
and that's
over.
what people lack. That's what people lack, the patience. It's like if you've been 100 pounds overweight for 30 years of your life, and now you started doing the right thing for 2 weeks. It's interesting how your brain goes, well, I should have lost all this weight already. It's like, well,
Yeah.
wait a minute. We've been doing the opposite for the past 20 years. It's going to take time. And like you said, patience.
Yeah. What are the best exercises for building real functional strength? Do you have like a top five that you like kind of like go to?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the answer to that is it depends, right? For the demographic that I work with, it really depends on their experience level, um, their capability, what they have access to. But if we're talking just straight up, I think the traditional moves like the squat, the deadlift, the bench press, the shoulder press, you know, those are great moves for building strength. But I think variations of those are also valuable depending on who you're dealing with, right? Miss
Yeah.
Jones might not necessarily want to do a barbell press, but if I can get her to do a seated dumbbell press, it'll be beneficial for her as far as that category goes,
Yeah.
right? She may not want to put a barbell on her back and drop down and squat. She could, but
Yeah.
she may not want to, right? So maybe I do um, goblet squats for her. I think strength and building strength, the success to that is, like you said, progressive overload, right? I think even if you are doing those big movements, and if you're doing the same reps and the same weight, the same way for a long period of time, I don't think you're getting stronger if you're not progressively overloading. So I think more than anything, progressive overload is a major key that people, tend to skip over.
Yeah. Most people don't value the 2.5 pound weights that they throw on the bar, every week. That adds up over time for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And they go by, they train based off of like what mood they're in, right? So, because if you're not tracking the workout, now you're only going based off of how you feel. So you can literally come into the gym and be in a good mood, but if you're using data, just because you're in a good mood doesn't mean you had a good workout. Like
Yeah.
if you lifted 100 pounds last week for 8 reps, and now this week during that same set of the same weight, you were in a great mood, but you only did 5 reps because you weren't tracking. Well, technically, you went backwards,
Yeah. You didn't improve it. You
right?
didn't improve at all.
Right? You just felt good, right?
Yeah.
And then the opposite is true, where people are in a bad mood, so they tend to do less because they feel bad. Where you can look at your data and say, all right, well, last week I was able to do 8 reps with this weight. Even though I'm in a bad mood right now, I know I'm capable of at least doing 8 reps again. So let's get it, even though I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah. I love that. What's your take on high frequency training versus low frequency training?
I think they're both great. Um, I think that it depends on what the goal is. And I also think that even if, even with varying goals, I think that sometimes when we plateau, I think that switching from one spectrum to the other can give us that breakthrough that we're looking for. Example, you know, we'll use the basic bro split, right? Let's say you're going 8 to 12 reps and you've been doing that for a while, right?
Yep.
I've backed people off and say, you know what? For this next 4 weeks, I only want you going 3 to 5, right? And it gives them that breakthrough just because we switched it up like that. So I think they're both valuable, one depending on the goal, but two depending on how long you've been doing whichever one. And the same is true on the flip side, right? Like if you've been doing three by five for a long time, sometimes it's valuable to switch and go higher, 8 to 12, 12 to 20. So I think it's all about how the exercise is applied that makes the workout dynamic.
Yeah. When you do that, do you kind of have them like tell them that they're focusing more on strength with the lower reps and more muscle building on the higher reps, or is that not anything that like you say to them? Or
It depends if that it depends on if they care or not, right?
okay, yeah,
Like like some people some people will come to you and say, I want to get stronger. So if stronger is part of their goal, and that's the vocabulary that they're using, whether it's 8 to 12 or 5 to 8, I'm going to help them understand how it's helping them get stronger,
yeah,
right? Some people are like, I care more about aesthetics. Well, you can still become aesthetically pleasing in the 5 to 8 rep category, but now
for sure.
your nutrition is going to play a factor. Power lifters historically don't look the most aesthetically pleasing, but that's not due to the lifting. That's due to the nutrition piece.
Yeah,
You
there's
know what I
they're
mean?
usually pretty still jacked people underneath that fat. They just
100%.
mass moves mass in the sport of powerlifting and strongman. Those guys
Yep,
have so much muscle, but it's all covered with the mass that they need for their sport.
absolutely. I mean, look at you. You, from an aesthetic standpoint, you don't look like the other guys. You look, and I'm not no disrespect to the other guys, but you look what the average eye would consider good, right? Like I look at you, and you are somebody that somebody could look at and say, like, damn, he's a strong man, and I still want to look like him. Most people, when you look at a strongman competitor, you're just like, hey, dude might not have the aesthetics, but he's strong as hell. So I
Yeah,
want to be as strong as him. But you never really hear, I want to be as strong as him and I want to look like him.
yeah,
And I think that comes down to like the nutrition piece of it. But sometimes you got to carry that mass for the sport. You've done a good job at still putting the mass on, but you've done it in a way that where it's still aesthetically pleasing.
I appreciate that. Speaking of that, how was training strongman with me when you and Kale came up and did a workout with me?
There's some parts of my life, man, that are very, gray, right? Almost even I've even blacked out of my mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those parts of life where I try not to think about often. It popped up on my memories the other day, and it just like took me back to a very, very scary time. So, I don't know how you do it. It's
Yeah.
it's it's, it's you it's not easy, but it's actually harder than it looks,
For
So I'm
sure.
like doing these simple movements and I'm like, I should be able to lift this. But I didn't know the proper technique until you told me. So I'm just trying to muscle these things up. And you're like, no, you gotta do it this way or it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, it's not something I'm looking forward to doing again. That's why I haven't been back.
That's fair. That's fair. No, that came up on my feed too, and I went back and watched that whole video. It was awesome. But I'll clip that in here so people can go check that out and watch that. How much fun?
That was hilarious. Hey, but you know, it was an honor to be able to do it with somebody at your level because you crush it, right? I saw you a couple weeks later. Where were we at the
I think
at
we were
the
at the
Olympia? Was
we
it
were at the Olympia. Yeah, you and Tavia came and
Olympia? And
watched me.
I'm like, yeah, and you were dominating. So I'm like telling people I trained with him a couple weeks ago. I taught him everything he knows. Actually,
Yeah. Yep.
so
If someone can only train 3 days a week, what's the best way to structure their program? Do you kind of like
that's a
do uh main movements?
that's a yep, that's a great question. So there's two ways that I would approach this if it's 3 times a week, depending on obviously what the goal is. I would either go 3 days full body, right, where you're going from the biggest muscle group to the smallest muscle group. So I would give them um, one exercise for each muscle group
Okay.
and 1 to 2 sets. I wouldn't have them do more than that. In the rep range would probably be 12 to 20, right? So picking weight where you can lift it 12 to 20 times. And we would start with a quad movement, work our way up to the hamstrings, a back movement, chest, shoulders, biceps, triceps, all 3 days, right? Because if you only got 3 days, I'd rather you get the most out of it
Yeah.
in that small amount of time. The other way that I would approach it is if you got 3 days, I would go 1 day upper, 1 day lower, and then one full body day.
Okay.
Yep.
Is the goal for like to achieve failure on those, or is that depending on the goal? Like if they're trying to do more muscle building, are you trying to reach failure? If you're doing strength, are you trying to stay away from that?
So it would depend on the goal, but given that I have you doing full body, my goal isn't really for you to hit failure. I would like you to have anywhere between 3 to 5 reps in reserve
Okay.
because not only do I want you to use that in between day to recover, but I want you to feel capable to hit that workout again when you come back on Wednesday. Like if I got you going Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I don't want you to be so sore from Monday that you can't go Wednesday, right? So that's why I would have that rep range that high, but not lightweight, but I would have you train to capacity, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily failure, but I want you, when you get to that number 20, it was pretty challenging to get there, but you probably could have got 5 more reps if you wanted to. Because I'm thinking about not only your workout from Monday, I'm thinking about how you're going to perform Friday when you come in as well.
So how do you feel when someone says, "Oh, I wasn't sore from that workout. It wasn't a good workout." How does that make you feel? Like, is that something that like kind of upsets you? Because
Well,
sometimes you're not really, because
I
sometimes
think
you're
it's,
not trying to chase that. You want to be able
yeah, I
to
think it's
function the
just
next time.
I think people misunderstand what success on a fitness journey is, right? We tend to associate soreness with whether the workout was good or not. We tend to associate sweat with whether the workout was good or not. And when you think about it, neither one of those things are indicators of a good workout. Now, am I saying that if the workout was good, that doesn't mean you can't be sore? No, you can be. But
Yeah.
a sore muscle is just a recovering muscle, right? When you sweat, that doesn't mean the workout was good. That just means you were hot, and that's our body's way of, you know, not overheating,
Yeah.
right? So you could very much have a great workout week and not really be that sore. And that's
Yeah.
why we use data, numbers from a progressive overload standpoint to determine, all right, am I moving in the right direction or not? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And the progressive overload doesn't have to be a 50-pound PR every time you go to the gym. It's that 5 pounds, 10 pounds that you're adding to the bar, or maybe you're increasing your reps by one or two of the same
Yep.
weight that you did the previous week. So there's
100%.
different ways to calculate progressive overload.
100%. You and I both know there's rarely going to be that 50-pound jump. Maybe the first few weeks when you're like really trying to figure it out,
Yeah. Or
right?
you're a
But
newbie.
after that, it's only little jumps.
Yeah. Yeah. The newbie gains is a real thing.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
once you start getting into, years and years, those small, 5 pound, 10 pound jumps in, a couple months is a huge, huge goal, is a huge way to improve your overload.
Dude, I have a client recently who was super frustrated with me for the process. He's put on so much muscle over the past 3 years, dog. It's insane, right? But he's at that point now where he's gone from working out to now he's training, you know?
Yeah.
And and he saw progress quickly because of the newbie gains. But now he's at a point where the progress is happening, but it's only a little bit at a time. His
Yeah.
question is always, how can we make this faster again like it was in the beginning? And it's like, dude, I've been trying to get bigger for the last 17 years.
Yeah.
Right? So it happens in small increments. Just keep doing the thing, you know?
Yeah. How should someone eat to support their muscle building goals? You think that's important for more carbs or more protein?
I think that, and you're probably going to get tired of me saying this, but it depends,
Yeah.
right? When you talk muscle building, though, like protein is the muscle building macronutrient, right? However, I think that people are a little bit more afraid of carbs than we should be. I think sometimes when people aren't growing, it is because they aren't consuming enough carbs. So the first place I usually start, like if you can nail all your macros, great, right? But most people who I deal with in the beginning, it's a little bit overwhelming to nail all of them.
Yeah.
So I'll have them focus on their total amount of calories and their protein intake. If you can hit your total amount of calories and your protein intake, I'm good with that for a while, because guess what? Carbs and fats can be interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're hitting that calorie intake, then you're hitting your fuel sources too. But I need you to hit that protein number, because that's directly related to, muscle and body composition. So if I'm dealing with a weight loss person, and I got the scale coming down, when it gets down to your ideal goal body weight, I want you to be happy with what's looking back at you in the mirror,
Yeah.
and that's going to be determined by how much muscle you have. Haven't you ever seen people who've lost 100 pounds, and when they get down to their goal body weight, they look like a smaller version of what they looked like when they were heavier, because they didn't do anything to mitigate muscle loss. All they
Yeah.
did was anything they could to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And now you're what we tend to call skinny fat because of it, right?
Yeah.
So for me, you got to prioritize protein. And then secondarily, I want you hitting your total calories intake. And then we make adjustments based off of, your strength training and then how your results are going week by week.
Perfect. What's your stance on intermittent fasting for performance, muscle building, and fat loss?
Most people won't agree with me when it comes to this topic, and that's okay. I think from a performance standpoint, I'm personally not a fan of intermittent fasting. I think if you are, if you're somebody like I had a barber, right? I had a barber who his job, he was standing all day, and uh, he didn't get to eat the same amount of times that all of us did because of his schedule. Okay. So for him, it made sense. We didn't implement it for performance specifically. We implemented it because he only had a certain amount of window time wise
Yeah.
to eat. But even with that, within that window, Tyler, I still want him hitting his protein and his calories,
Yeah.
So for me, I think the best diets are the ones that you can actually stick to with consistency and without deviation. And that tends to be one that's a little bit harder to stick to, especially if you're only having, 1 to 2 meals a day in those windows. So um, I prefer fed training, but the reality of it is it's a preference thing too, because I know a guy who's a power builder who he lives and dies by, the intermittent fasting, and he performs well because of it.
Yeah.
But even with that, he's still hitting his protein, hitting his carbs, hitting his fats within those windows. So
Yeah.
to each his own, but it's not something that, because think about it, when a client comes to you asking about a specific diet, it's because they think that's the magic one, right? And I don't think it comes down to which one is magic. It's which one are you going to stick to, right? And
Yep.
then all of them, if the goal is fat loss, you got to be in a caloric deficit, no matter
Yeah.
which one it is,
Yeah.
right? For it to be effective. So
Yeah.
that's my long-winded answer to your question.
That's perfect answer. Perfect answer. Are supplements necessary, or can people get everything from Whole Foods?
Yes.
To which question? To all of
so
it.
so I believe that supplements are designed to fill in the gaps that we have nutritionally. But what I've come to learn in my 17 years of coaching people is that we tend not to get everything that we need through whole food. Is it possible to get a lot of it? I think so. I
Yeah.
think from the micronutrient standpoint, that's where it gets a little bit more challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you had a perfect diet, it's pretty hard to get everything that you need from a micronutrient standpoint. And then when you add working out on top of that, we tend to need more than the average person from a
Yeah.
micronutrient standpoint. But from a protein, carbs, and fat standpoint, I believe it's possible, but possible and what's actually happening, that's what we got to look at.
Yeah.
And what I tend to do with clients is I look at what's actually happening. If you get up at 6 a.m., your first meal is until noon, and that first meal you had was a salad with no protein, and then now you don't eat again until 3, and now you finally eat some chicken at 3. Well, guess what? We probably should figure out how to get you a protein shake if your first protein source is until 3 p.m.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
That,
it's possible, but most people don't actually make it happen, and that's what supplements are designed to do, fill in those gaps.
yeah. What are your top three supplements that you recommend and why?
So typically, um, our protein, our Formula One protein, and people might disagree with this because Formula One protein is designed for post workout, but dude, I use it during the day as well,
Yeah.
right? So our Formula One protein, our microfactor, micronutrient pack, and then it's a toss up between OptiGreens and magnesium, and
Okay.
I'll explain why. The protein is because and I know, dog, you've been doing this for a long time. Most people don't eat enough protein, right?
Correct. Yep.
Even the guy who comes to you complaining and says, dude, I'm eating all I can and I'm still not building muscle, and you have him track what he's doing for 3 days, he maybe is getting 100 grams.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? And your body doesn't care if you're busy or you're trying really hard. Your body only knows what's actually happening. So if you're not hitting it, it has to come from somewhere. So most people struggle with protein. And once we get them hitting their protein, now they're able to build muscle. Building muscle leads to burning more calories, so on and so forth. So that's always the first thing,
Yep.
right? Micronutrients, like I said, most people, even if you had a perfect diet, it's hard to hit that. But then with the greens and magnesium, I feel like if there's a magic supplement, magnesium would be it, right? Because it does so much for you, like not just sleep, not just mental and physical relaxation, but there's studies that shows like what it does for the brain, cognitive function. So you got to throw that one in there. And then most of us don't get a large variety of veggies, so that's where the greens will come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Magnesium is like the powerhouse of your body. It like controls
dude,
like 400 operations of your body. So like mitochondria and all that shit. You need to be taking it. What do you
bro,
recommend? How much do you recommend?
well, I believe so. I was about to go into how I could tell you so many stories of people who have just taken the the daily serving of it, where it total game changer. Because I had a client who was having some heart issues, and her doctors were setting her up to have to go in and figure out what was going on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying magnesium healed her, but I'm saying the only thing we did was implement that, and the doctor changed the whole plan and said we don't need to go in anymore and see, what's going on, because things have seemed to change, right?
Yeah.
And I forget what the daily recommendation is for it, but no more than that. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah. How important is hydration? And do you have any strategies for people who struggle to drink enough water?
Hydration is another one of those things. I would say right under protein that people struggle with. I think it's huge because our bodies are made up of 77% water,
Yeah.
right? But here's the problem though. Hydration isn't just water,
Correct.
right? Hydration is electrolytes as well. So you can have somebody who's drinking a lot of water and they're still, not properly hydrated because they're not getting enough electrolytes. So one of the things that I typically recommend people is first thing when you get up in the morning, have yourself 20 ounces of water with a little bit of salt in it,
Yeah.
right? Because if you had 8 hours of sleep, that means you haven't hydrated in at least 8 hours, right? So the first thing before you reach for that cup of coffee, right, before you go for that caffeine, and I'm not saying you can't have the coffee or the caffeine, but before you do it, hydrate with 20 ounces of water and some salt, right? Now, if you're having trouble hitting your water goal, I'd like to break it up. I take one of these, right? It's about 20 ounces, 25 ounces, and I have at least 4 of them a day. You can have one in the morning, and if you're having 3 meals, one with each meal, have one before your workout, one after your workout, but it has to be an intentional thing that you're thinking about
Yeah.
until it becomes a habit, right? The reason you can't do it right now is because you haven't been doing it. So now you have to set a plan. All right, I'm gonna have one as soon as I wake up. Then I'm gonna have one after each meal. Then I'm gonna have one before my workout. And next thing you know, you're at your 120 ounces.
Yeah. I have a bunch of people look at me like I'm crazy, like especially during competitions. Like as soon as I weigh, like, if I have to do like kind of like a water cut, I will, not have water, not have sodium. And then after I weigh in, that first thing I'd have is electrolytes, salt in my water. I'm like just
Yep,
dumping it on there.
absolutely.
And then I'm just chugging water. It just fills the cells
Yep.
and you just get so much hydration in your cells and in your muscles. It's crazy.
And all of a sudden you're strong again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But people don't
Dude,
understand that, which is,
one of my most viral posts on TikTok is because everybody started arguing in the comment section about me talking about this topic, right? And I started out, I said something about how, why does nobody educate us on how salt is one of the keys to hydration? And everybody was going crazy, like, no, you shouldn't be putting extra salt in your water. And then I had like construction workers jumping in, like, well, we take salt with us for hot days, so it must be something to it. You know what I mean? So the
yeah.
post blew up because there were so many people who disagreed with doing it. Then there were so many people who agreed with it. And then there were people arguing about, should you use pink salt or Celtic salt
Mm,
or regular salt? And the type of salt doesn't matter as much, but people were arguing about it. So it's interesting how controversial that topic is
for
when it really
sure.
shouldn't be.
Yeah, for sure. What are your top strategies for staying motivated when progress stalls for yourself?
Well, lucky when you've been doing it for a while and you get this, when you've been doing it for a while, you learn that motivation is awesome when you can have it, right? Like I'm not the guy who's gonna say screw motivation, right? Like that's become very clickbaity where everybody's like, forget motivation, it's all about discipline. I think that's true. If I can have some motivation, I'm gonna ride that wave as long as I can,
It sure
Tyler.
helps. It sure
Right,
helps.
it helps. But when you've been doing it as long as we have, you understand that you can't rely on that in order to determine whether you're going to do what it is you said you were going to do or not, right?
Yeah.
So I've trained the discipline muscle so much now to doing what I said I was going to do in this category is just who I am now, right? So I always tell my clients the common denominator between the most successful people at this are the ones who understand that they have to do what it is that they know they're supposed to do, whether they feel like it or not. And like you said earlier, if you can be consistent in doing that, then eventually it just becomes who you are, right?
Yeah.
So I have 17 years of experience to prove that. So I don't necessarily have to feel like going to the gym to go to the gym. I'm
Yeah.
going regardless, right? Now, I appreciate the days when I do feel like it, right? But because I've trained that discipline muscle, I'm going regardless. And that would be my recommendation for people who struggle with that. It's, dude, some days it ain't about the physical, you know, the physical progress. Some days the workout can just be the outlet that you need to deal with the stress
Yeah.
from the day, right? But whatever it is, if you can stack days of going, now that's becoming who you are. Just as when you skip, that's also becoming who you are. And
Yeah.
whichever one you do the most becomes the strongest.
Yeah. How do you help people push past the fear of the gym? Like somebody that's getting into the gym, how do you help them, get past that fear of entering?
Yeah. So I like how you phrased it earlier, where we were talking about progressive overload, but not from the workout standpoint. That's the same way that I approach the I'm scared to go to the gym, right? I created this challenge called 30 minutes for 30 days is what I did. And it was random. It was just because of I had a client, just like what you just said, he was scared to go in. And when you're scared to go in and you ask people why that is, it tends to be for all these reasons that aren't really as true or as real as they think, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's really paying that much attention to you in the gym
I've heard that
as
one
you think they
before.
are.
Yeah, heard that one
You
before.
know what I mean?
Holy.
Like nobody's really watching you as much as you think they are, but you're self-conscious about it, right? And the
Yeah.
other thing is like, well, Mike, I'm going to go in and I don't know what to do, right? So I think if I can get you to build the habit of just walking through the doors, I don't assign anything crazy. Take the first 30 days, go in, get on the treadmill, press the green button, stay on the treadmill for 30 minutes, get off the treadmill, go home, drink a recovery shake, come back and do it again tomorrow. Once you do that for a while, you get to looking around and you realize everybody's in their own freaking world. You
Everybody's
got
got everybody's got headphones on and doing their own thing.
everybody's got headphones on, doing their own thing, and you realize, like, wait a minute, nobody cares about me as much as I thought. So now I'm building momentum and I'm building confidence. So that's typically my approach. And usually after like 15 days, people are like, all right, give me something to do, like as far as the machines, right? Or give me a workout to do, because now they realize nobody cares what they're doing.
Yeah. How much does sleep impact fat loss? And then how do you work with anybody, or do you help fix sleep habits, or is there anything you do to help with sleep?
Yeah, man, that's a big one. We talk about a few different pillars. Obviously, we talk protein, we talk steps, we talk water, we talk strength training, and the other one is sleep. And this is one that people struggle with more than they realize, because there's getting you to go to sleep, but then there's also quality sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like a restful night of sleep, and magnesium is a really good tool to help with that. But what I do is I don't harp on it as much in the beginning. I'll paint the picture of all those pillars that I just pointed out.
Yep.
But when things are moving in the right direction, I want to know why. When things are not moving in the right direction, I want to take a look at those areas. And let's say you're hitting your protein. Let's say you're hitting your water. Let's say you're hitting your steps. And I'm like, all right, what time are you going to bed at night, Tyler? And you're like, well, I'm up playing a video game until 2 a.m. And it's like, well, do you think you can possibly go to bed at midnight instead of 2 a.m.? And that's the thing that's hard for trainers to understand. Because, like, yeah, I understand if I can get Tyler to put the video game controller down and get a full 8 hours of sleep, that'd be great. But if he's only getting 2 hours of sleep right now, if I can get him to get 4 hours of sleep instead of two, that's better,
Yeah.
right? And better is better. And now once he gets four, now I can paint the picture like, dude, now that we've got you sleeping 4 hours, it's not where we need to be, but look at what it's doing to your performance. Imagine if we can get you to sleep for 6 hours,
Yeah.
right? And we habit stack it that way.
Do you think the quality of sleep is more important, or the quantity of sleep?
That is a great question. If I had to pick one, I would say yes. I would say yes. I think they're both. I think they're both. But if I had to pick one, I would say the quality.
The
I would say the
quality.
quality. Yep.
Yeah. Because there for a while I was working out at like 3 in the morning. So I was going to bed at like 9. So that's like 6 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of had to do that with my work schedule. I was getting to the gym about 5, and then I was training all morning. Then I do my workout, and then I'd go
Mm-hmm.
home and eat and stuff like that. So people were like, "You're not getting enough sleep." But I was like, "Well, I fall asleep within like 2 minutes, and I sleep the whole night. Like I don't get up for anything, and I would wake up super refreshed." So
Yep.
people were like, "You're not getting enough sleep." I was like, "But my quality of sleep is really good." So you
Yep.
could say you sleep for 9 hours, but you got up 3 times. Your quality wasn't that great.
Absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. I think it is a quality thing. And, you know, they got all types of things you can test that. Like they got watches that can tell you, you know, you were in your restful sleep for this amount of time, and this amount of time you weren't. But I love that example that you gave, because there are nights where I'm sleeping, but I'm also thinking about everything I got to do, right?
Yeah.
And there are times where, and I wake up feeling like I didn't get any sleep. But there are other times where I'll take a nap, dude, where I just like in the middle of the day just fall asleep and I'm out for a few hours. And like you said, like I'm good, I'm refreshed. And I think that comes down to the quality piece, man. So
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Are cheat meals useful or harmful for fat loss progress?
I don't believe we should cheat anything on this journey, right? I don't believe we should cheat anything, but I do understand the context of your question. Um, and I really do think it depends on the person because let's use it. Let's use holidays for example, right? I have clients where I'm like, Tyler, it's Thanksgiving, bro. Do your thing, enjoy, live it up, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And but I know you've built the discipline to where once Thanksgiving is over, it's right back to business as usual for you, right? But then I also have clients where I know as soon as they taste that stuffing, it's sending them on a downward spiral that it's hard for them to come back from,
Yeah.
right? So it just depends on who the person is. Now, there's a way to implement it because if somebody's been on a deficit for a while, having those moments where you give them more fuel is beneficial.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be Burger King, right? It can be more of the high quality food choices that they're already having, just more of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fuel, it can be beneficial to the process. And the less quality choices can also be beneficial to the process from a performance standpoint sometimes, but mostly breaking up the monotony, unless it's from somebody who can't recover from it. You give me Oreos, dog, I'm eating the whole row. And then after I'm done with the row, I'm eating the bag. And then I'm in the store buying more Oreos.
Yeah.
So if you told me, Mike, it's okay to have Oreos, it's not okay for me to have Oreos. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't let me have those,
Yeah.
right? So
I'm
I
the
think it
same.
just depends.
I'm the same way with Nutter Butters. Give me anything with peanut butter and I'm going to destroy that shit.
Going crazy. And you know that about you.
Yeah.
So you're very careful around that area. So almost to the point where when it's game time, you don't even have that in the house. You don't
Yeah.
even have that in the city. You don't even go down that aisle in the store,
Yeah.
right? And I don't fool myself into thinking, oh, I could just have one of those because I can't, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. If I do that, it's typically before a super hard training day the next day, like a strongman day where I know that I need extra fuel. I'm going to
Yep.
have all that carbs and sugar. It's going to be put to use that next day. So that's
Yep.
kind of when I pair it to where I'm going to use it.
You're experienced enough to use strategy to work it in,
Yeah.
right? When Miss Jones is just waking up in the middle of the night, sneaking and getting it to, fulfill that sweet tooth. And next thing you know, it becomes something that she can't get past, right?
Yeah. What's the number one mistake people make when trying to build muscle? Is it more on the physical training or is it more on the diet?
Nutrition, man. Even I would say it's safe to say all of us have been down that path because you grow up, you watching your favorite bodybuilder and you see how hard they train and you're like, oh, I'm going to do that. Right. And then maybe you do that and you do experience the newbie gains, but you get to a point where, and I hate this cliche, but it's so true. It's like you can't out train a bad diet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like eventually it gets to a point where if you want to build muscle, you got to be hitting these factors. And if you're not hitting them, you do hit a ceiling where your progress stops, right?
Yeah.
If you stop hitting your protein target over a long enough period of time, you will not see progress on the muscle building side long term,
Yeah.
right? We all have these examples where it's like, what about this guy with the genetic freak who, was born with a six pack? It's like, well, he doesn't do it. Yeah, but if he did do it, imagine how much better he would be, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What's more important for hypertrophy, heavy weights or high reps?
I think it comes down to what I like to call training to capacity, right? I don't think it's about heavy from the standpoint of I can't lift anymore, but I do think you have to put enough load on the muscle to force it to have to eventually adapt, right? If I'm every time I go into the gym, if I if I'm only doing 10, because people go in and they're like 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10. And at some point, if it's just la di da di da, I'm on 7, 8, 9, 10, boom, you're not growing because you're not putting enough load on the muscle to be forced to adapt. So I think it comes down to being smart enough to train the muscle to capacity. I don't think that means maxing out every time you're in the gym, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like coming up, I think we all made that mistake. Every time I benched as a youngster, I was trying to hit a 1 rep max.
Yeah. That does not mean ego lifting.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
It's controlled sets, controlled reps, but also there has to be some challenge to the exercise in order to grow. It can't just be a walk in the park, in my opinion.
Yeah, I had Grant Horn on last week, and we
That's
talked
my
a
guy.
little.
I love Grant.
Yeah, we talked about mechanical failure. That's kind of like where he draws the line is when the form breaks down is when you shut down the set and move
Absolutely.
on to half reps, stuff like that. So
And,
yeah,
and I don't think people put enough value in that, man. Like switching to half reps or drop sets or changing the movement and making it an isometric movement, right? Changing the tempo, right?
yeah,
So all those things can be forms of progressive overload or ways to push the muscle a little bit further when that form does break,
yeah,
because we've all seen the guy or been the guy who's in the gym just swinging the weights. And it's just like, at some point, you're not working the bicep anymore. You're
yeah,
working whatever you're working, the hips.
yeah. You mentioned isometric. For someone that may not know what that is, can you explain what isometric contraction
So
is?
it's just taking the movement and holding it essentially, right? So it could be what's a basic example? Like a wall sit is
Wall
a
sit.
form of an isometric hold, right?
Yep.
Um, another way you could do is like on the bench press, as you're bringing the weight down, you're stopping at that point of tension and holding it,
Yeah.
right? You can do that where some people will, let's say I can't bench 405. Some people will take the 405 off of the bar, but not let it down and just hold it.
There's holding it. They're building
Yep,
that neural pathway for their body to get used to handling that much weight.
absolutely. Yep. So
How often should someone train a muscle group for optimal growth? You like 2 times a week, 1 time a week? What do you kind of like to structure?
I think it depends on how hard they trained it previously, right? If I trained it, I would like to be able to train the muscle 2 times a week, right? However, if I trained it so hard on workout 1 and it's time for me to hit it again, workout 2, and I'm still extremely sore, then I don't know how much benefit it's going to bring me to train that muscle again today. So I would say 1 to 2 times a week. However, in that example that we gave earlier, given that I'm not training to absolute failure with the 3 times a week that I gave you earlier, I've seen people, build muscle in that scenario as well. So it all depends on how you're training it. I don't know that amount matters as much versus application.
Yeah. What's your favorite method for breaking through a strength plateau?
Hey, I don't know if I have a favorite method. I know that I don't enjoy deload weeks, but oftentimes where when you do hit that point where you stop making progress and you ask yourself, well, when's the last time I deload week or back down a bit? And you know, that's usually the reason. Or am I eating enough? Right? Am I drinking enough water? Am I sleeping enough? So sometimes it's not a plateau.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's let's look at what I'm supposed to be doing and what levers I need to pull. So I think we throw the word plateau around, not us as athletes, but sometimes clients are like, dude, I'm at a plateau. And it's like, well, are you at a plateau or are you just not drinking enough water? Are you at a
Yeah.
plateau or are you just not eating enough food? Are you at a plateau or are you just not sleeping enough? So my favorite method is breaking down what's actually happening and determining what our next step is based off of what we're currently doing.
Yeah, I've heard that kind of used for people say that they're overtrained. Maybe they're not overtrained. Maybe they're under nutrition. Maybe they're underhydrated, stuff like that. Would you say
Yep.
that's kind of like how you would say somebody that could be overtrained could feel?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely possible to overtrain, but there's a level that you got to be pushing to for that to be true. And technically, from a lifestyle client perspective, when they feel like that they're overtraining, it comes down to them under eating.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are your favorite simple, effective meals for busy clients who want to eat healthy? Is there places like fast food places that you would recommend, or do you think they should make stuff at home and like what kind of things they should make?
I think if you could commit to meal prepping, that's going to be your best bet, because when you're dealing with whole food choices that you know what's in it, that's ideal from a health standpoint, right? Um, with fast food, man, and I used to be a fast food guy. When I played ball, like I would eat McDonald's 3 times a day, right? But now, when you really look at what's in the stuff that you're eating, well, you got to care about the quality of it, right? So, but I understand sometimes you do end up in that drive-through. So I don't have a specific restaurant that I would recommend, but I do say when you end up in those scenarios, if you can find things that fit into your numbers so that you aren't thrown way off, then that's ideal. Best case scenario, make your food, take it with you. Secondary, if you have to pull up in a drive-through, I would say choose choices that still fit within your numbers so that you're still on track.
Yeah, I heard a strength coach who was also like a nutritionist, and he said I'd rather you eat something than not eat anything at all. What's your take on what
100%.
you agree with that too?
100%. Yeah, I
Okay.
do. Especially, you know, I've seen so many things happen in the gym, and when you break down why it happened, it all goes back to nutrition. And most of the time, it's the person didn't eat enough. The the client comes in for a first workout with the trainer. They're trying to do everything right that day, so they ate a salad, and then they ate some lettuce, and then they ate some carrots, and they da da da, and then they come in to train hard and exercise 3, pass out, right? I would rather, in that case, I'd rather you have had that double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at least you would have had the fuel to perform. Now, this doesn't mean that to make that a habit, but if we're using that scenario, absolutely.
What's your take on alcohol and muscle gain? Does it really kill your gains?
Absolutely. And this is coming from a guy who likes a tequila here and there, right? But there's no way around it. The research on it is pretty clear. Oftentimes, all these programs that you see now that have you removing alcohol, not only does it provide the mental clarity, but going back to the quality of sleep, usually after a night of drinking, not only does it you tend to make bad food choices or food choices that are less beneficial to your goals, but your sleep is crappy.
Yeah.
So when you talk about those factors, and then you add in the fact that alcohol is legitimately a poison, um, it's almost impossible to grow muscle at the rate that you could had you not been doing it.
Yeah. What's the biggest training mistake you see people making in the gym?
Training from a personal trainer standpoint, or like I'm in the gym working out standpoint.
You're in the gym working out.
Looking to my left and saying, this dude is big and he's doing this exercise, so now I'm gonna go do that, right? Or maybe you ain't in the gym. Maybe before you go to the gym, you scroll on the internet and you see what your favorite influencer is doing, and now you go do that. So their whole workout lacks structure because it's all dependent on looking around and saying, like, all right, I want to do that, I want to do that. And now you don't know if you're progressing or not because you're all over the board. I think that happens so much. Like I'll see dudes see me in the gym, and then they'll they'll they'll, they'll think they're doing what I just did, and I'm looking at it, and it ain't what I just did at all.
It looks
You know what
awful.
I mean?
Yeah.
So, so I think that happens, far too often.
I have a couple if I can get this to work. A couple controversial takes on training I would like your opinions on.
Okay.
What's the biggest scam in the fitness industry right now?
Oh man, believe it or not, man, that's tough for me because I do not pay attention to the fitness industry because of
Okay.
that, bro. Like
It's all a
I,
scam.
dude, I don't want to say all of it, but I would say a lot of it, man. I stay out of the way and I kind of stay in my own lane because I'll give you one. I made a post about this the other day. I think one of the biggest scams in the influencer space is the influencer who constantly has his shirt off or the girl who's constantly showing off her glutes. Not because I have a problem with them having their shirt off or showing off their glutes, because if you got it, in my opinion, flaunt it. If you're confident enough to do it, do your thing. The problem that I have is this, Tyler. You have your shirt off and you're telling people that if they buy your program, they can look just like you, right? Or the girl who has the nice glutes or the nice abs and she's showing it off and telling people if you buy my program, you can look just like this. I think across the board, you see that nonstop. You see people who are enhanced medically, and then they come out with an ebook saying you can look like it's like, didn't you have right? And surgery is not bad. I'm not saying you shouldn't have surgery. I'm saying it's dishonest to do that and then go and tell people, buy my product and you can have this too. Like I think that's the biggest scam, and that scam has stood the test of time. It's been around since I
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. Are six packs overrated? Do they actually indicate fitness?
I don't think they're overrated because I think that depending on why you want one, I think you deserve to have it.
Yeah.
But they do not indicate fitness. I think when I was in college, I think if you would have flipped me inside out, I was probably the least fit, right? Because of how I was eating. But I definitely had a six pack, definitely super ripped. So I don't think it always indicates fitness, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, it can be an indicator of low body fat percentage. And oftentimes that is an indicator of how fit you are. So it just depends.
Yeah. Are genetics bigger factor in muscle growth than people think?
Yes, 100%. I know dudes that can work out one time a month and look better than me and you put together. Just based
Yeah.
off where they're from. Now, do I also think that people use genetics as an excuse where it's
Hmm.
like, oh, well, I don't have the genetics? I
Yeah.
also think that is true because I think you can push a little bit further than you think you can, even if you don't have the genetics as,
Yeah.
the guy I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. What's the most overhyped exercise?
The most overhyped exercise, flat bench press.
Hmm.
I think I think that flat bench is a great exercise. I think that the fact that we all ask each other how much is your bench press is ridiculous because we're using that as the indicator to like how in shape you are or how fit you are. It's like, dude, the amount of times that I got stopped asked with that question when I wasn't even bench pressing is crazy.
Yeah. So I don't even bench press that much, but I can pick up a 380-pound Atlas stone from the ground. So
Dude,
it's
bench press doesn't matter in your world, right? As much, right? Like, and I rarely go over 315 these days. Like, I don't care to, right? Now, if I was a power lifter, then that's different,
yeah.
right? But across the board, we tend to ask each other. Like, people probably see you and say, "Hey, Tyler, how much do you bench press?" And you're like, "Well, I don't have to bench press, but ask me how big that stone was. I just carried 100 yards. Now we talking,
Yeah.
right?" So,
Do most personal trainers actually know what they're talking about?
ooh, Hmm. I do most personal trainers actually know what they're talking about? I think the fact that everybody becomes a personal like I think that the answer would have to be no, and here's why. You see a new person selling a new program every week, so you'd have to lump that into the personal training category. And I think you have these guys who look good and have been in shape all their lives, but they don't know how to get other people in shape. But they're viewed as the authority because they look good, right? So I think because of that, you'd have to say there's a large majority that, you know, don't have a good understanding of what it takes because all they know is how to get themselves in shape.
Yeah.
That'll be my answer to that.
Okay. Do sponsorships and endorsements create dishonest fitness advice?
Yes. I think I let me take it back. The sponsorship and endorsement itself doesn't. I think integrity is a person to person thing, right? So for me, I'm not going to tell you to take something that I don't believe works, right?
Yeah.
But there are people who, if you pay them a certain amount of money, whether they've taken the product or not,
They'll,
they're going to tell
yeah.
you it's the best thing ever. And you're like, so wait a minute, you took that to look like that, right? So I think it comes down to that. That's a character thing.
Do celebrity trainers actually know what they're doing or are they just good marketers?
Depends on who the celebrity trainer is. You want to name somebody? I'll tell you. I'm just kidding. Do not name names again. I think with being good at what you do, I think you have to have a little bit of both. I don't think it's bad to be a good marketer, right? But I
Yeah.
also think there's a level of honesty that has to come with that, right? I don't if I'm selling you something that I know doesn't work just because I'm making a profit off of it, that's dishonest and that happens a lot. But
Yeah.
if I'm good at what I do and I'm good at marketing, I don't think that's bad.
Yeah. Do you know who Dr. Mike is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He always has some of the best videos on YouTube when he like has people, he's got celebrity trainers up there, having actors or actresses doing lifts and stuff, and he's like critiquing them and they're doing like the most random shit. And he's like, that would never work. He's like, why don't they actually have people like just lift weights and get strong? And they're doing like one arm planks with a buso ball on their back with a band around their neck and stuff. So I see those videos and I'm like, this is crazy.
The crazy thing is bad fitness works, right? Like you can get results doing the thing effectively, but it will work better if you did it right. So I've seen him do those videos. Like I saw him do Kevin Hart's trainer. Um, I saw him do a couple others that I thought was funny. But I agree, man. I agree. A lot of times they do a lot of that stuff to get likes and views, though,
Yeah,
right?
for
Because
sure.
the more entertaining the lift looks, then the more likely I am to stop and watch.
Yeah. It, is the no pain, no gain mentality helpful or harmful?
Overall, I think it's harmful, but I do think there's a portion of it that is helpful because most people when they tend to feel that discomfort is where they stop. And I think that if you can train yourself to push past that at times, then you can you can enter a side of things that you've never experienced because you've never pushed that hard. Now, that's different if my knee is messed up and you got me continuing to do squat jumps, right?
Yeah.
Bro, pick another exercise. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But, you know, if people are uncomfortable with going hard, I think pushing past that can be beneficial. But there's a difference between pain of like my joints and my ligaments and pain of like just discomfort.
Yeah. I got one, two, three, four, about 6 or 7 rapid fire questions for you to end up the podcast.
Let's do it.
Favorite influencer,
You.
favorite first form product,
Formula One.
what flavor?
Man, that new watermelon flavor, man.
I
Have you
got that.
tasted it?
I got it. I got it here at home.
I think that is the best flavor that they've ever made.
It's
Hands
good.
down.
It's good.
Hands down.
It's good. If you could only hit one muscle group for the rest of your life, what are you hitting?
Arms.
Arms. Favorite cheat meal?
Chipotle.
What's your order?
I go with the barbacoa beef. Sometimes I'll do it with rice. Sometimes I'll do it with a wrap.
Okay. Biggest gym pet peeve?
Crunch Fitness. No, being I love Crunch. I think that the problem is we have a lot of people standing around on the machines. I
Mm,
don't care if you stand around and hang out at the gym. Sometimes that's that's your social spot, do your thing. But doing it on the machines is where I got a problem.
yeah, I agree. I've been there late at night, or not late at night, but like after work. That place is crazy busy, and the people are annoying as hell.
Dude, I understand the busy gym. I ran gyms for years. Busy gym
Yeah,
is good, but I just, bro, sitting on the machine and talking to your boys while you're sitting on the machine is crazy.
yeah. Least favorite exercise that's effective. Like, what's one exercise you hate to do?
Least favorite I personally struggle with deadlifts, but I also know that it's, in my opinion, it's one of the most effective exercises, from a total body standpoint out
Yeah.
there.
And the last question: favorite artist to listen to while you're working out? You got like a top three, top five?
I like Drake. I like Rob Bailey. You know who that
Yeah,
is? The
yeah, I
hustle.
do.
I listen to him more than anybody. And then I like Kevin Gates.
Kevin Gates.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'd
Oh,
like to.
I got two more.
Oh, you got two. If you want to do two more, you got two more.
Um, Jay-Z and Beyonce
Okay.
in that order.
Okay. I'd like to thank Mike Trotter for being on the podcast today. Where can they follow you at?
First of all, thanks for having me, bro. I'm the PT Boss on Instagram, and then the PT Boss official on TikTok. So that's where I'm at most of the time.
Yeah. Be sure to check him out. He's got great content, funny videos here and there. And then hopefully soon we can get him doing strongman again for another video.
I forgot where your gym is, man. And my direction, my GPS is messed up.
Or maybe I'll come down to Bloomington and work out with you.
Yeah, if you leave all your equipment at home, and we got you.
Yeah. You take me through one of your workouts. How about that?
I, you'll breeze right through it. You'll breeze right through it. So, but yeah, I'm down with that.
Okay. Thanks again, Mike.
No doubt, man. Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Yep.
Have a good one, brother.
You too.